My mom flew me home for the holidays, then told me to babysit while they vacationed. I stared at the email confirmation on my phone as the plane descended into Seattle. First class. Direct flight from Singapore. My mother had insisted on booking it herself, which was unusual enough to make me suspicious. But it was Christmas, and despite everything, I'd convinced myself that maybe, just maybe, this year would be different. I was wrong. The moment I stepped through the arrivals gate, I knew something was off. My mother stood there with her phone raised, not to greet me but to take a photo. Behind her, my stepfather Richard held a professional camera. Perfect, Mom said, lowering her phone. Now we have proof you made it home safely. Not, welcome home. Not, we missed you. Just documentation. The drive to their house, the house I'd grown up in before Richard came along and renovated it beyond recognition, was filled with my mother's monologue about their upcoming cruise. The Mediterranean. 14 days. Departing on the 23rd. Wait, I said from the back seat. That's in 2 days. That's Christmas Eve. Exactly. Mom beamed at me through the rearview mirror. We figured since you were coming home anyway you could watch the kids. They're so excited to spend time with their big sister. The kids. Richard's children from his first marriage. Brittany, 16, and Chad, 14. They'd made my life miserable the 3 years I'd lived under the same roof with them before I left for college. I'd put 6,000 miles between us for a reason. You flew me home to babysit? We flew you first class, Richard corrected. You should be grateful. Do you know what those tickets cost? I did know, actually. I knew exactly what they cost because I'd spent the last 8 years building something Richard couldn't even comprehend. But he didn't know that. Nobody did. I thought we were spending Christmas together, I said quietly. You'll be with family, Mom said. The kids are family. What she meant was, you're not our priority anymore. You never really were. The house hadn't changed much on the outside, but inside it had been transformed into what I could only describe as a shrine to Richard's success. Photos of him receiving awards lined the hallway. His corner office took up what used to be the family room. Everything screamed wealth and achievement. His wealth, his achievement. We've got everything set up for you, Mom said, leading me to the basement. My old bedroom had been converted into a guest room with a pull-out couch and a few storage boxes stacked in the corner. The kids know the rules. There's food in the fridge. Emergency numbers on the counter. I have a job, Mom. I took vacation time to be here. What job? Richard smirked. Last I heard you were doing some tech thing in Asia. That's not a real job. You're probably between gigs anyway. I worked as the Director of Strategic Acquisitions for a private equity consortium based in Singapore. My job was to identify undervalued assets, conduct due diligence, and facilitate purchases. I was very good at it. So good that 2 years ago I'd been offered a partnership stake. But they didn't know that. They thought I was teaching English or doing freelance web design or whatever story my mother had invented to explain my absence to their friends. I do consulting, I said simply. Consulting. Richard said it like it was a joke. Everyone in Asia calls themselves a consultant. It's code for unemployed. Brittany appeared at the top of the basement stairs. Is the babysitter here? She's not a babysitter, Mom said quickly. She's your sister. Half-sister, Brittany corrected. And only technically. If you've been enjoying this story so far, hit that like button and subscribe. There's so much more coming, and trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. That night, after my mother and Richard left for a pre-cruise dinner with friends, I unpacked my laptop and opened my encrypted files. Old habits die hard, and I'd learned long ago to always know who I was dealing with. Richard Thornton, CEO of Thornton Solutions, a mid-sized consulting firm specializing in corporate restructuring. Revenue, $42 million annually. Clients, mostly regional, a few national accounts. He'd built his reputation on being ruthless, coming into struggling companies, cutting staff, optimizing operations, and flipping them for profit. He was good at it. But he wasn't careful. 3 months ago, my consortium had acquired a controlling interest in Pacific Capital Holdings, a financial group that held the debt on over 60 companies across the Pacific Northwest. Among them, Thornton Solutions. Richard had leveraged the company heavily to fund the lifestyle my mother had become accustomed to. The house, the cars, the private schools, the cruise, all of it floated on credit he couldn't actually afford. I hadn't made the connection until now. I'd approved the Pacific Capital deal from Singapore without looking at the full client list. Why would I? It was a routine acquisition. But now, sitting in the basement of my childhood home while my mother and her husband vacationed and left me with children who despised me, I looked closer. Thornton Solutions was 60 days past due on a balloon payment. According to the terms, if they missed the January 15th deadline, Pacific Capital could call the entire loan. It would destroy the company. I could fix it with a single phone call. Or I could let it play out naturally. I closed my laptop and went upstairs. The next 2 days were predictably awful. Brittany and Chad treated me like hired help, leaving messes everywhere and ignoring every boundary. When I asked them to clean up, they told me I wasn't their real sister and couldn't tell them what to do. On Christmas Eve morning, my mother and Richard loaded their suitcases into an Uber Black. "The kids have a party on the 27th, Mom said, handing me a credit card. "Take them shopping for outfits. Nothing over $500 total." "Have you checked on Richard's business recently?" I asked. Mom frowned. "Why would I need to? Richard handles all that." "Just curious." "Don't worry about things you don't understand," Richard said, sliding into the car. "Just keep the kids alive. Try not to screw that up." They left. Christmas was silent. The kids stayed in their rooms. I ordered takeout and worked remotely, watching the markets from the basement. My consortium partners in Singapore messaged me about the Pacific Capital portfolio. There were decisions to be made about the companies in default. I told them I'd handle it after the holidays. On the 26th, I took Brittany and Chad shopping as instructed. They wandered through the mall, grabbing items without looking at price tags, tossing things at me to carry. "I want this," Brittany said, holding up a dress that cost $600. "Your mom said $500 total. So, use your own money. You owe us for putting up with you. Okay, I need you to do me a favor right now. Pause for just a second and leave a comment telling me if you think I should help them or teach them a lesson. Seriously, the next part is going to blow your mind, so stay with me." "I don't owe you anything," I said. "Whatever." She tossed the dress at a sales associate. "Put it on the card." I didn't stop her. I paid for everything, $2,000 of clothes they didn't need, and made a mental note of every receipt. The party was on the 27th, hosted at the Columbia Tower Club. I'd never been, but I knew it well. It was one of Seattle's most exclusive venues, used for high-level corporate events and society gatherings. The Thornton family had been invited because Richard sat on the board of some charity or another. "Why are you coming?" Chad asked as we got ready to leave. "Someone has to drive you. Uber exists." "I'm coming." The Columbia Tower Club occupied the 76th floor of the tallest building in Seattle. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, Puget Sound, and the mountains beyond. The party was already in full swing when we arrived. Executives, donors, board members, all dressed in formal wear. I wore a simple black dress I'd bought in Singapore. Nothing flashy. Nothing that would draw attention. Brittany and Chad disappeared immediately, finding their friends. I stood near the windows watching. "You're Angela's daughter, aren't you?" A woman approached me, champagne in hand. "I'm Diane Lawson. I work with Richard at Thornton Solutions." "Nice to meet you. Are you in town visiting?" "Something like that." "Richard mentioned you're in Asia. Teaching English." "Consulting, actually." Diane smiled politely. "Oh, that's nice. Richard's always saying how important it is to try different things when you're young. You'll find your path eventually." "Find my path?" As if I were still wandering, still figuring things out. "I'm sure I will," I said. Richard arrived 30 minutes later with my mother, both of them tanned and refreshed from their cruise. They worked the room like politicians, shaking hands and laughing too loudly. My mother spotted me and waved but didn't come over. The evening program began. The charity, Something About Youth Education, gave speeches thanking donors. Richard was called to the stage to present a large ceremonial check on behalf of Thornton Solutions. "Our company has always believed in investing in the future," Richard said into the microphone. "These kids represent everything we stand for: hard work, determination, and the courage to reach higher." Applause filled the room. I checked my phone. An email from my partner in Singapore. "Pacific Capital Board meeting moved up. Need your decision on Thornton Solutions by midnight PST." I looked at Richard on stage, soaking in the applause. I looked at my mother, beaming with pride. I looked at Brittany and Chad, laughing with their friends, wearing clothes I'd paid for with money they thought I couldn't afford. I opened my email and began typing. The program continued. More speeches. More awards. Then the charity director took the microphone. "Before we conclude, I'd like to recognize someone very special who's joining us tonight. We were notified just a few minutes ago that we have a representative from Pacific Capital Holdings here. They've been one of our largest sponsors this year and we're honored." I stood. The director's eyes found me. "Please come up." The room went silent as I walked to the stage. I could feel eyes on me, confused, curious. My mother's face had gone pale. The director handed me the microphone. "Thank you," I said. For those who don't know, Pacific Capital Holdings is a financial group that acquired several regional portfolios earlier this year. We've been working with many Pacific Northwest companies to ensure their long-term stability and success. Richard's expression shifted from confusion to recognition to something close to panic. One of those companies is Thornton Solutions, I continued. Richard, congratulations on your work tonight. It's wonderful to see companies giving back to the community. Richard tried to smile. It looked like rigor mortis. I wanted to take this opportunity to address something important, I said. Pacific Capital recently completed a review of our partner companies, particularly those facing financial challenges. Thornton Solutions is currently in default on a significant loan, with a balloon payment due in 3 weeks. The room had gone completely still. However, I said, we believe in second chances and in supporting leaders who demonstrate genuine commitment to their communities and families. After tonight's generous donation and seeing the company's values in action, Pacific Capital has decided to restructure the Thornton Solutions debt with more favorable terms. Relief flooded Richard's face. There is one condition, I added. The restructuring requires the company to meet certain operational and ethical standards, including transparency in financial reporting and executive compensation. We'll be conducting a full audit starting next week. Any discrepancies, personal expenses charged to the company, misreported revenue, unapproved bonuses, will void the restructuring agreement and trigger immediate loan default. Richard's face went white. We look forward to continuing our partnership, I said. Happy holidays. I handed the microphone back and walked off the stage. The room erupted in confused applause. People didn't know whether to be happy or concerned. Diane Lawson looked like she'd seen a ghost. My mother found me by the windows. What just happened? She whispered. I did Richard a favor. You work for Pacific Capital? Since when? I'm a partner, Mom. I have been for 2 years. But you said consulting. Strategic acquisitions is consulting. I acquire companies. I evaluate risk. I make decisions about who gets second chances and who doesn't. You let us think you were struggling. You never asked. You assumed. Richard appeared, his face flushed. We need to talk. About the audit? It's standard procedure. You know what you'll find. I can guess. The car you claimed as a business expense but only use personally? The vacation charged to the company card? The inflated office renovation that mostly benefited your home? Yes, I imagine we'll find several interesting items. You're going to destroy me because of a babysitting gig? I'm not destroying you, Richard. I'm giving you a choice. Clean up the company, run it honestly, and you'll survive. Keep treating people like they're beneath you, including family, and the consequences will handle themselves. Angela, Richard said, turning to my mother. Talk to your daughter. My mother looked between us. I don't understand. She flew me home, I said quietly. 6,000 miles. First class. So I could watch your children while you went on vacation. She didn't ask if I had plans. Didn't ask if I wanted to be here. Just assumed I had nothing better to do. You're punishing us? I'm teaching you the same lesson Richard teaches his clients. People aren't assets you can leverage when it's convenient. They're human beings who deserve basic respect. I'm your mother. You were. For 18 years. Then you remarried and decided I was in the way. Mom's eyes filled with tears. That's not fair. Fair. I felt something crack inside me. You replaced my bedroom with a guest room. You stopped calling unless you needed something. You told your friends I was lost in Asia because successful didn't fit your narrative. And when I finally came home for Christmas, you left. We thought you'd enjoy time with the kids. The kids hate me. You know they hate me. You've always known. Brittany and Chad had appeared nearby, drawn by the commotion. Is it true? Brittany asked. You actually have a real job? Yes. And you're the one who decides if Dad's company survives? Partially. She looked at me differently. Not with respect exactly, but with something close to it. Fear maybe. Recognition. Why did you pay for our clothes? Chad asked. If you knew about Dad's company, why would you waste money on us? Because your parents told me to take you shopping. And because someday when you're older, I want you to remember this night. I want you to remember that the person you treated like garbage had the power to end your father's career with a phone call, but instead chose to give him a second chance. Why? Chad said. Because revenge isn't about destruction. It's about making people see what they refused to see before. Thank you so much for watching all the way to this point. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe because I share stories like this every week and you don't want to miss them. The audit took 2 weeks. My team found exactly what I expected. $47,000 in personal expenses charged to the company over 3 years. Not enough to be criminal, but enough to violate the restructuring agreement. I called Richard on January 8th. I'm giving you a choice, I said. Repay the $47,000 from personal funds, accept a reduced executive compensation package, and sign off on new oversight protocols. Or Pacific Capital calls the loan. This is blackmail. This is business. The same business you've conducted with dozens of companies. The only difference is you're on the receiving end. He agreed to the terms. Thornton Solutions survived. Richard's lifestyle took a hit. No more first-class cruises, no more company car, no more unlimited expense account. My mother had to return to work part-time, something she hadn't done in years. Brittany apologized in a text message in March. I didn't understand who you were. I'm sorry. Chad never apologized, but he did friend me on social media and occasionally sent me articles about business and finance. Small steps. My mother called in April. Can we talk? About what? About everything. About how I failed you. How I chose comfort over my own daughter. How I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't change the past. I know. But maybe it can change the future. Thought about hanging up. I thought about all the years of invisibility, of being the daughter who wasn't worth keeping. Maybe, I said. We met for coffee in Seattle in June. It was awkward and painful and honest in ways we'd never been before. She told me about her fears when I'd left, about how she'd convinced herself I was fine because it was easier than admitting she'd pushed me away. About how Richard had promised her security and she'd sacrificed everything else for it. I thought I was protecting myself, she said. I didn't realize I was losing you. You did lose me. For a while. Do I still have a chance? I looked at this woman who'd raised me, who'd taught me to be strong even as she forgot how to be strong herself. Everyone deserves a second chance, I said. Even you. It's been 8 months now. We talk every few weeks. It's not perfect. There are still wounds that haven't healed, trust that hasn't been rebuilt. But there's something there that wasn't before, honesty. Richard and I maintain a professional relationship. He runs his company more carefully now with oversight and accountability. He's better at his job than he was before, ironically. Turns out you make better decisions when you can't hide behind privilege. I'm still in Singapore. Still building something remarkable. Still being underestimated by people who don't know better. But I learned something that Christmas in Seattle, something I carry with me every day. The most powerful move you can make isn't crushing someone who's wronged you. It's showing them exactly who you are and letting them realize what they almost lost. They flew me home to babysit while they vacationed. Instead, I taught them the most important lesson they'd ever learn. Power doesn't announce itself. Doesn't need to. It just waits for the right moment to be seen. If this story moved you or made you think differently about second chances and standing up for yourself, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. Whether they're struggling with family dynamics, dealing with being underestimated, or just need a reminder that quiet strength is the most powerful kind.